Hey, hey, hey. Time for another out of this world story from our space. Am I the a-hole for telling my ex to give me her house or go homeless? I, 36 male, have one child, Melissa, 14 female, with my ex, Jane, 39 female. We were together for about a year and she got pregnant and expected me to marry her because of it. While I did agree that it would be the best for us to move in together, I never said that I would marry her, as she didn't tell me that she expected me to propose until her final month of pregnancy, and she yelled at me for not proposing sooner. Due to the lack of communication and mass assumptions, I set the record straight and said that I wouldn't marry a woman that I've only known for less than 2 years just because she was having my baby. Cue the flying monkeys that were her parents, friends, etc., saying that I needed to take responsibility and make an honest woman out of her. I countered that if getting married, especially before the baby was born, was so important to her, then she should have picked a different guy. I also pointed out that I was taking responsibility when I moved in, agreed to pay all the bills because Jane didn't want to work while pregnant, attended the majority of doctor's appointments, all the birthing classes, and built the nursery. Jane was so mad that she stormed out and didn't speak to me until after she'd given birth. That ticked me off and I demanded a DNA test before signing the birth certificate. And she was so bitter that I wouldn't marry her. By the time Melissa was 5, I had already taken Jane to court 7 times about custody and visitation. Things got slightly better after Jane started dating again because I would nonchalantly imply that she was still in love with me, and her boyfriend didn't respond well to that. She backed off and wouldn't fight me on my scheduled time. Eventually, the guy gave her a ring, but by then, Melissa was enough to be vocal about wanting to spend time with me. While I am glad that Jane found a new guy, this man wasn't exactly a prize and always wanted something for nothing. He wanted to be his own man and own a business that inherently wasn't bad, but he was just bad at it. When the bank wouldn't give him a loan for his next business venture, he convinced Jane to take a mortgage on her house, and it failed. Jane called me, claiming to need more money for our daughter's expenses, and when I asked for a detailed report, she got upset and tried to guilt trip me. She said that she would take me to court, but since she'd already gotten an increase 3 months ago, I knew it would get denied. That's when Jane confessed to me about the mortgage, and that if I didn't help, Melissa would lose her home. I countered saying that so long as I had a roof, Melissa would never be homeless. Cue the flying monkeys again. Then I told her that I would help with the loan payments after she signed over the house to me. I made this offer knowing that she wouldn't accept it, but prepared to do it because I can say that I tried to help, and so that our daughter won't be in danger of losing her home because of her mom's stupid choices again. Am I the a-hole? ETA. Because of word count, I didn't initially put this in, but just to be clear. 1. My ex made dumb choices and wants me to bail her out without getting anything in return just because I can, and resent her for trying to use her daughter. 2. As stated in the post, my daughter can just live with me if her mom loses the house. I would never leave my own child homeless. I have no idea where you got that. 3. Yes, the house would be completely in my name and I would sign it over to my daughter once the mortgage is paid off and she's of age. This is being done so her mom can't ransom the house anymore. 4. Yes, technically my ex would become my tenant if she agreed, and I would also make her sign an agreement or evict her. 5. After years of manipulation, intentional harm, and scheming, I am indifferent to the idea of my ex suffering. 6. Me saying that she still had feelings for me was, admittedly, a tactic to get her boyfriend-turned-husband to get her to back off because of the constant hassle she gave me just to spend time with my daughter and maintain my legal rights as a parent. Going through the courts is expensive and takes up a lot of time. This was not about ego. So what say you, community? Is he the a-hole? Colleen 1370 starts us off. Not the a-hole. Who the F expects their ex to help out financially beyond the child's money? You have a house. Melissa is 14. She can easily decide that she wants to live with you. Your child won't be homeless. If your ex wants to take Melissa to live on the streets, I suppose it's pretty easy to get the court to force Melissa to stay with you. You don't need to help her. They can move out, get a job each, and pay a normal rent. Final Blade Style added, heck, as a bonus, if he gets full custody, the child support payment stops. One more comment from No Policy 4095. Regarding your offer, not the a-hole. You're asking for collateral for the loan, which is reasonable and smart to protect yourself. At the end of the day, you're right that your daughter will not be homeless over this, and her request is over the top ridiculous. That whole divorce custody situation sounds like a nightmare for your daughter with both of your petty squabbling. On to the next story. Am I the a-hole for acting unhappy at me and my wife's gender reveal? My wife is 7 months pregnant. It came as a complete surprise, as my wife had been taking birth control regularly. We had originally planned to not have any kids, but my wife changed her mind after her first ultrasound. I respected her decision, even if I wasn't the happiest about it. I told her that regardless, I wasn't going to force her to make a decision. We had a gender party late because of issues with the pandemic, but we finally got around to it. I already was not happy, given the circumstances that I did not want to have any children. I still participated to show support to my wife, though. Once the gender reveal happened, everyone, including my wife, was ecstatic. She went to go hug me and I hugged her back, just not with the same energy. She looked at me with a concerned face but went off to hug some of her friends and family. Once it was over and we got everything put up, she blew up at me. Said I embarrassed her in front of her family and the least I could have done was pretend I cared. I told her I didn't really see a point in throwing a party just because of the gender, but she wanted to do it, so I agreed. She said that she understood that I didn't really want to have a baby, but that since they were almost here, that I should probably lose the attitude already. I responded saying that since she knew I didn't want the baby, she shouldn't be surprised I wasn't enjoying the baby shower. She supposedly thought that the baby shower would change my mind, but was upset it hadn't. I told her that I wasn't going to apologize for simply not showing any emotion, and that she needed to give me time to adjust, especially with the kid on the way. Am I the a-hole? Edit. We used condoms and I was denied a vasectomy by my doctor. Alright, community. A-hole or not? Kavolitan has a couple comments. I don't think this is really a question about who's the a-hole. I think your world is changing dramatically in a way which you weren't prepared for, and that therapy is almost definitely required. It's not wrong to be freaked out, but you decided to go ahead with this, and now you need to find a way to come to terms with it, ideally before the kid arrives, so you can parent your child in the fullest and best way possible. Here's his other comment. You're the a-hole. Not for spontaneously being excited for a child when you didn't want a child, but you're the a-hole for making it so obvious, especially at a party. Sorry to say, but unless you think you can pull it together and generate some excitement, I think you should look into a divorce. Because there's going to be a child, and in my opinion, as a child of divorce, I would say having a single parent is greater than having one of two parents obviously not give a crap about you. Next opinion coming from AgeEnder92. I'm probably going to get downvoted for this, but not the a-hole. It's such an ingrained thing in our society to expect everyone to want kids that when someone doesn't, other people decide to take it upon themselves to call the person selfish or tell them, you'll change your mind one day. Because this is such a prevalent attitude, it's difficult for those kinds of folks to wrap their heads around the fact that no, not everyone wants kids. People can legitimately never want a child, and there's nothing wrong with that. It sounds like you two discussed that before getting married. The kids were off the table. Well, things happen. Sometimes it's a pregnancy. But it does not mean the feelings around raising a child will up and change just because the reality of it is staring you in the face. I can sympathize with your wife's feelings, but you made it clear from the get-go that you did not want children, and you two seem to have been on the same page pre-pregnancy. Her expectation that you suddenly change your mind on the issue isn't fair to either of you. She's putting the pressure on you to do something you did not want to do, and at the same time, she's setting herself up for heartbreak with that expectation. I'm sure she's scared she'll end up a single parent, and that this sort of thing could threaten the marriage. And that's not uncommon. The differences in the desire to want children or not can end relationships, since it's such a huge compromise to make. Could you have saved face for your wife? Yeah, maybe. But this is deeper than your behavior at the party. Good luck, OP. One last comment before moving on to the last story. One Understanding 3484 says, not the a-hole. You're not excited for a child you never wanted. That's fair. She changed your mind, which she has every right to do, hoping you'd be happy. You don't have to be in the child's life if that's truly what you want. But if you choose to stay with your wife, you need to be present for that child and her. Moving on to, am I the a-hole for sending my son to his dad after he broke his sister's phone just because she called my husband dad? When my husband first met my kids 4 years ago, Sarah 14, Jonathan 17, things were tense. Although my husband loved them instantly, Jonathan decided to make it hard and influenced Sarah to do the same. He treated my husband poorly, called him the guy mom married, broke, thrown his stuff, and shut him out when he tried to get close. We got family therapy, but Jonathan refused and tried to stop Sarah from going. Sarah was hesitant, saying she promised Jonathan not to do what her stepdad wants and was afraid he'd get angry. She then attended therapy and things started working out between her and my husband. They got close, which upset Jonathan, who tried to giving Sarah, didn't know then, punishments for betraying his orders. We tried getting Jonathan in therapy again, but my ex defended his decision and demanded we leave it alone. Things have calmed down then. Yesterday morning at 8, Sarah rushed into the kitchen where I was washing glasses while Jonathan, my husband, was sitting, having breakfast. She was looking for her phone charger, but didn't find it in her room. She quickly turned her face towards my husband and said, "Dad, Jonathan, have you guys seen my phone charger?" Me, my husband, and Jonathan paused. This was her first time ever calling him Dad, and it came unexpectedly and naturally. My husband tried to answer, but was too overwhelmed to speak. His eyes were teary. He couldn't hide it, even when he tried. Sarah didn't even notice. She just rushed out to keep looking. Jonathan followed her. My husband bit his lip and kept looking at me, then started crying. I was genuinely smiling, which was awful since he was a crying mess, but I was just so happy for him. Then I heard a noise coming from upstairs. It was Jonathan yelling at his Sarah for calling her stepdad Dad. He punished her by throwing her phone and breaking it. She cried, telling him to leave her alone, but he kept yelling, saying she betrayed their real dad and called this guy Dad. I got involved and asked him why he broke Sarah's phone. He called her a traitor, but I replied my husband did nothing to treat him this way, and his behavior was out of line. I said he either respects this household, his stepdad, his sister, and me, or go stay with his dad till he agrees to get therapy and change his behavior. I contacted my ex, saying Jonathan will go stay with him for now, and therapy's in order since I can't let him intimidate Sarah, especially after Sarah told me she's afraid of him. My ex fought with me, saying I chose a guy over my own son. Typical. He got his family involved, and they all called me cruel for kicking Jonathan out of his home even after I explained how he's been treating his sister. I gave him options to get therapy or stay with his dad. No one seemed to agree with me, but I think that no one is seeing, or maybe they're turning a blind eye, how Jonathan has been mistreating his sister. She needs to feel safe in her own home and be able to express herself without being punished and intimidated by her older brother. This thread's about judgment, and you shall get it. Jamie913 starts us off. Your son is being abusive towards your daughter. You're not picking your husband over your son, you're protecting your daughter from your son. And maybe it's the best that he stays with his dad if he finds your husband so offensive to the point where he acts out like this. Your ex is also partially to blame for enjoying the abuse your son dishes out to members of the household due to his dislike of you remarrying. I understand he's hurt, but that doesn't give him a right to destroy or break property that doesn't belong solely to him. Therapy or move to dad sounds pretty dang reasonable, in my opinion. Last comment coming from Fuzzy Mike. Not the a-hole. The issue I see isn't between your son and your husband, but between your son and your daughter, who he thinks has authority to punish. But I'm not a therapist who would have the training to see what the issue really is. I think everyone would be doing your son a disservice if they framed this as bio-dad versus the man that turned his mama on. Your son has issues that need to be addressed wherever he lives.